Was an introduction into ratio, rates, and proportions. In this video, we'll be solving world problems in this same topic. And the first question we'll be looking at says, a number of pencils were shared out among Bisi, Shola, and Tunde in the ratio 2 to 3 to 5, respectively. If Bisi got 5, how many were shared out? So first we write out the ratios as we're given, which is 2, which is Bisi to Shola to Tunde is ratio 2 to 3 to 5. Now, what the ratio says essentially is that for every pencil that is shared out, for every 2 that Bisi gets, Shola gets 3 and Tunde gets 5. So regardless of how many pencils we're sharing, 50, 100, it doesn't matter. For every 2 you give Bisi, Shola has to get 3 and Tunde has to get 5. That's essentially what this ratio stands for. Now, to solve ratio problems, some of the things I would advise you to do at first is to sum up your ratios. It helps you express each of this person's shares as a fraction of the whole ratio. And it also helps in solving the ratio problems, as we would see later on. So if we sum up these ratios, we would get 2 plus 3 is 5, 5 plus 5 is 10. So the sum of our ratios is 10. Now, we don't know how many pencils were shared, but we were told that Bisi got 5. So, Bisi's share of the entire pencils shared is 2 over 10, which is, if you multiply by the total number of pencils shared, would result in 5 pencils. We don't know how much was shared, but we know that if you find Bisi's share of what was shared, it results into 5. So all we need to do is make n the subject of the formula, find the value of n, and that is the total number of pencils that were shared. So if we make n the subject of the formula here, n is going to be equal to 10 times 50. We send 10 over here, which is 5 times 10. Not 50, sorry, 10 times 5. And then we divide by 2 here. And so that's going to be 50 over 2. N equals 25 pencils. So the total number of pencils that were shared is 25 pencils. Just as a bonus, if we would also find out how many pencils were gotten by Shola, that will be 3 over total number of the ratio, which is 3 over 10, expressing Shola's share as a fraction, multiplied by the total number of pencils shared. And you have that this is going to be 75 over 10. So Shola gets 7.5 pencils. Well, that would be something if you would break a pencil into 2. You can do the same for Tunde, which in this case is going to be half of 25, which is 5 over 10, 25. And that's going to be 12.5. So if you add everything up, you should get 25. Now, the second question says that a construction company is owned by 2 partners, X and Y. It is agreed that their profit will be divided in the ratio 4 to 5. And at the end of the year, Y received 5,000 naira more than X. What is the total profit of the company for the year? Now, first we have to express the ratios as we're given, which is X and Y, and the ratio is 4 to 5. Like I said, it helps that we find the sums of the ratio, which is 9. So we can express each of these ratios as a fraction of the total. So the X shares is going to be 4 over 9, and Y's share is going to be 5 over 9 of N, which is the profit. So what we were told is that Y receives 5,000 naira more than X. So Y, the share of Y, which is 5N over 9, as we can see here, is equal to X's share, which is 4N over 9, plus 5,000, because Y receives 5,000 naira more. So the only way to make this equal is 4N plus the excess of 5,000. So we can solve for N by making N the surrogate formula here, and that becomes 5N over 9. If we bring this over here, is minus 4N over 9, and this is equal to 5,000. An LCM of 9, 5N minus 4n. This is equal to n over 9. And this is equal to 5,000. So n is equal to 5,000 times 9, which is 45,000. So the profit is 45,000. The next question says, if the length of a square is increased by 20% while its width is decreased by 20% to form a rectangle, what is the ratio of the area of the rectangle to the area of the square? So first we'll have a square. We're told we have a square at first. And then the length was increased and the width was reduced. So if we assume, since we were not given any values here, you can assume any values. So if we assume that the length of this square, for starters, is 10, 10. Now we're told that the length was increased by 20%. So if we increase the length by 20%, 20% of 10 is 2. So 10 plus 2 equals 12. 10 times 20%. 10 here, 1. 10 here, 10. 20 divided by 10 is 2. So that's the percentage increase. If you add that to the original length, that gives you 12. Just so that we're clear about that. And we're told that the width was reduced by 20%. We know that 20% of 10 is 2. So if you reduce 10 by 20%, that gives you 8. So what are the ratios of these two? The area of the square is 10 times 10, which is length times breadth. And that is 100, whatever it is, let's say cm squared. And the ratio, the area of this rectangle is 12 times 8, which is 96 centimeters squared. Now we're asked, what is the ratio of the area of the rectangle to the area of the square? Now the area of the rectangle is 96. The area of the square is 100. We can further reduce this by dividing both sides by 4. And if you divide 96 by 4, you get 24. And if you divide 100 by 4, you get 25. Now, in the options here, you would notice that there is 25 to 4 and there's 24 to 5. It is very important that you get the order correct because the correct answer is 24 to 5. Now, if they had asked us, what is the ratio of the area of the square to the rectangle, it would have been 100 to 96, which would have then been 25 to 4. But what we were asked was, what is the ratio of the area of the rectangle to the square? The rectangle comes first, 96 to 100. The square comes second, 24 to 5. So in ratios, this question is to buttress the fact that the order comes, the order is very important. The next question says, two brothers invested a total of 5,000 naira on a farm project. The farm yield was sold for 15,000 naira at the end of the season. If the profit was shared in the ratio 2 to 3, what is the difference in the amount of profit received by the brothers? So the ratio is 2 to 3. Now the profit is equal to 15,000 naira, which was the total sales, minus the amount that was invested in the first place, which is 5,000. So the profit is 10,000 naira. So don't forget, I said we should always find the sums of our ratios. And so what this is saying is that if you divide this profit into 5 places, you get 2,000 each. And the first person is getting 2 portions of that, which is going to be 4,000. And this person is getting 3 portions of that, which is going to be 6,000. So if we would do that, solve that out, 2, which is this first person's fraction of the total profit, which is 2 divided by 5, multiplied by 10,000, which is the profit. So 5 here goes 1, 5 goes here, 2,000. So the first person gets 4,000 naira, and the second person gets 3 over 5 times 10,000. 5 goes here once, 5 goes here 2,000. 2,000 times 3 is 6,000. So the question is, what is the difference in the amount of the profit that was received? It's simple, which is 6,000 minus 4,000, and that's 2,000. So the difference in the amount that was received at the end of the day is 2,000. Now, two sisters, Taiwo and Kehinde, own a store. The ratio of Taiwo's shares to Kehinde's shares is 11:9. Later, Kehinde sells 2/3 of her shares to Taiwo for 720 naira. Find the value of the store. So, Taiwo to Kehinde, 11:9. Total ratio is 20 in this case. Now, we're told that Kehinde sells 2/3 of her shares to Taiwo. So 2/3 of 9 portions of the share, 2/3 of 9 is equal to 6. So 6 parts of this entire store was sold, and it was sold for 720 naira. So we know that 6 parts of this 9, or of the entire store itself, was sold for 720, which means that each part of the store, each share of the store costs 720 over 6, which is 120. So the shares is 120 each. Now Taiwo's shares becomes Taiwo to Kehinde. Taiwo shares becomes, because Taiwo gets the 6 and Kehinde sold 6, so it's going to be 17:3 now, which is still equals 20. But we know that the entire this doesn't help really in solving the entire the question that we were asked, but I just did this so that you can see how ratios can change based on how you move things around. But since we know that each share costs 120 naira and there are 20 shares in the entire store, so 20 shares is equal to 120 times 20, and that's equal to 2,400 naira. So the entire stock costs 2,400 naira. We're told that a basket contains green, black, and blue balls in the ratio 5:2:1. If there are 10 blue balls, find the corresponding new ratio when 10 green and 10 black balls are removed from the basket. So the ratios green to blue to black to blue. And we're told that this ratio is 5:2:1. If we sum that up, that's 5 plus 2 is 7 plus 1 is 8. We're told that there are 10 blue balls in this basket, so 10. So we can tell that for each part of this ratio, 1 represents 10. And so if 1 represents 10, 2 would represent 20 balls, and 5 will represent 50 balls. That is intuitive, and I hope you understand that. If one part of the ratio represents 10 balls, then 2 definitely represents 20 balls, and 5 represents 50 balls. Now, we're told that 10 green balls and 10 black balls were removed. So if we subtract 10 green balls and we subtract 10 black balls, the new number of balls will be 40 green balls to 10 black balls. The number of blue balls remain the same. And we're asked, what is the new ratio? 40 to 10 can be further reduced by dividing all by 10, which is going to be 4:1:1. And so our answer is option D here, 4:1:1. The next question says that a metal pipe 3 meters long was found to weigh 7.6 kilograms. What would be the weight of the same kind of 7.8 meters long? Now, 3 meters, here we'll set up our proportions. When we have a ratio that is the initial information that we're given, and we're required to use that information to find another information based on another ratio, what we're doing essentially is solving proportions. And so to solve proportions, we set up our proportions as so. 3 meters, the first pipe measures 3 meters and weighs 7.6 kilograms. The second pipe measures 7.8 meters, and we're trying to find how much it weighs. So we represent the unknown by n kg. And so to solve this proportion, we do our cross multiplication, which is multiply this by this and multiply this by this. Then we solve for n. So to do that, this would be 7.6 multiplied by 7.8 equals 3n. And to make n the subject of the formula, we divide both sides by 3. 3 cancels out 3 to leave n here. And this would be 7.6 multiplied by 7.8 divided by 3. And this is equal to 19.76 kilograms. And that's exactly how you solve proportions. So the next question says the distance between city A and city B is 270 miles. But on a certain map, this distance is scaled down to 4.5 inches. If the distance between city B and city C on the same map is 12 inches, what is the actual distance between cities B and city C? So the distance between city A and city B is 270 miles. But on the map, it is scaled down to 4.5 inches. Now the distance between city B and city C on the same map is scaled down to 12 inches. We are looking for the actual distance in miles. So like we did before, set up our proportions, always making sure that our units are the same at the top and at the bottom. Always pay attention to the units. And then we do our cross multiplication, which is multiply this by this and multiply this by this. So 270 multiplied by 12 equals 4.5 n. To make n the subject of the formula, divide both sides by 4.5. That will be 270 multiplied by 12 equals 4.5. And this is equal to 720 miles. The next question says you find that your watch gains 2 minutes in 5 hours. How much will it gain in 3 days? So we find that we gain 2 minutes, and we do that in 5 hours. So we're looking for how many minutes it will gain in 3 days. But let's take a break here, because we just mentioned that if we're sorting up our proportions, the units have to be the same. So there's something obviously wrong with this proportion, because hours is definitely not equal to days. So there are 2 ways we can solve this problem. The first is we can either change hours to days here, or we can change days to hours. So let's solve both so that we can establish the fact that it doesn't matter which you change to what. What really matters is that they are both the same. So if we divide this into our screen into 2, and we do number 1 here, which is changing hours to days. So 5 hours is equal to 5 over 24 hours, which is equal to 0.2083 days. So 2 minutes over 0.2083 days, which is this has been converted to days, equals n minutes over 3 days. So we do our cross multiplication, and so 0.2083n equals 2 times 3. 0.0283 times n here, 2 times 3 here. And so n equals 6, which is 2 times 3 divided by 0.2083. And that is equal to 28.8 minutes. Now, the second way is if we actually change days to hours, converting days to hours. 3 days is equal to 3 times 24 hours, which is 72 hours. So if we set up our proportion, which is 2 minutes over 5 hours equals n minutes over 72 hours. So 5 multiplied by n is equal to 2 times 72. So n equals 2 times 72 is 144 divided by 5. And that is equal to 28.8 minutes. So this is just to prove that it doesn't matter what you change when you're solving proportions. The most important thing is that both sides of the proportion carry the same units. And that's the key to solving proportions. So the next question says, a class of 42 students has the ratio of boys to girls as 3:4. How many boys do we need to add or remove to make the ratio 5:8? So the ratio of boys to girls is equal to 3:4. Sum of ratio is 7. Now, we're told that the total number of students is 4. So to get the number of boys, we have 3/7 multiplied by 42. And this results in 7 here goes 1, 7 here goes 6. So 6 times 3 is 18 boys. Number of girls, 4/7 times 42. 7176. 6 times 4 is 24 girls. And here we're told that the new ratio is going to be 5:8, which would make the sum of the ratios 13. The ratio of boys to total number of students will be 5/13. But we can't use this ratio because we have to change the number of boys. So this change is going to be reflected in the total number of students here. So this ratio to us is useless. But what we can use is the ratio of the girls that are not changing. So if we cancel this out and we bring the ratio of girls that are not changing, which is the new ratio is going to be 8/13. The new ratio is 5:8. Total number of students is 13. Total ratio, which is 8/13. And since we know that this ratio is going to represent 24, which is not changing, because what we're changing is the number of boys, not the number of girls. So the total number of students will change, and that will be 42 plus n. N is what we're adding to make this new fraction or this new ratio equals this. So if we solve this, we would have that 13 times 24 is equal to 8 times 42 plus n. So, and this is equal to 13 times 24. If we divide both sides by 8, we have 8 equals 42 plus n. 13 times 24 divided by 8 is equal to 39. And that is equal to 42 plus n. So n is equal to 39. If we move 42 to this side, it becomes negative. So 39 minus 42, which is equal to minus 3. So we actually have to subtract 3 from the total number of boys. If we do that, the number of boys becomes 18 minus 3, which is equal to 15 boys. And girls remain the same, 24 girls. So the new ratio would be 15 to 24. And if we divide this by, if we reduce this by 3, 3 in 15 is 5, and 3 in 24 is 8. So the new ratio is 5 to 8.